Here we have My Qatar Grand Prix F1 driver ratings. First off, we have Lando Norris. Now, he finished P5 on the road and at P3 in the sprint race, so I gave him a 7 out of 10. I think he could have gotten the P3 given that McLaren's strategy wasn't below par. And I think his P3 was good enough. I just think he did enough, really, to secure that Drivers' Championship. He just needed third, and he needed third, but he got P4 actually on the road. Never mind, I forgot Kimi had oversteer. I don't care what Helmut Marko says. And we move on to Oscar Piastri. Oscar finished P1 in the sprint after grabbing pole, got P1 in practice, got pole in qualifying, and should have won the race once again if McLaren's strategy wasn't below par. And I don't really think it's because of papaya rules, but that might have had a somewhat of a thing in it. But I gave him a 10 out of 10 because I think he was quickest man on track. He was quick all weekend. He would have had a Grand Slam unless we pulled a Ferrari strategy. And then Charles Leclerc. Well, it's kind of hard to really gauge Charles Leclerc because of how bad the Ferrari was and how he doesn't really have a comparable teammate this weekend. He got P9, I think, and P7 in the sprint, something like that. He got points, but not enough. So I gave him 6 out of 10. I think he had a lot of mistakes in him, but I don't know how much of those mistakes were down to him or having a Ferrari of 2014. But then we have Lewis Hamilton, and I think his mistakes were not because of the Ferrari car. I think that's just lack of confidence, and it did look like he didn't have enough grip. But I think at the age of 38, I think, or 40, something like that, he should be able to gauge the setup quicker than he did. It felt better to drive, he said, but it doesn't matter about better to drive. The ride doesn't equal good ride doesn't equal good pace, and that's something he should have tried to work around, I think. And if your teammate is getting to Q3 and you're out in Q1 twice, that doesn't bode well. So I gave him a 2 out of 10 because I think there's some leeway. It's not a 0 because I think there's some leeway about that being a Ferrari issue and not a Hamilton issue. Then we have Max Verstappen. Now, this might be controversial, the rating. It's only one off of what most people will give him. But in the sprint qualifying, he got out qualified by Yuki Tsunoda. He qualified P6, I think, and finished P5 or P4 on the road. He then went and won because of McLaren's strategy and because of pure pace, to be fair. I think he was on par with Piastri. Maybe a little bit slower, but he got the job done, so it doesn't matter. I gave him a 9 out of 10 purely because he got out qualified by Yuki. And so normally the challenges he faces in quali and practice he can bring back. So then we move on to Yuki Tsunoda. Out qualifies Max Verstappen, gets points in both the sprint and the race thanks to Isak Hadjar's puncture. So I gave him a 7 out of 10. Now that seems very generous. I was bordering on a 6, and then I remembered that he got the point, so I don't care. He got top 10. There's your 7, Mr. Tsunoda. George Russell. He was very hard to gauge as well because he qualified P2 in the sprint quali. I'm going to way more into the race obviously in qualifying than sprint quali, but he got P2 and then he kept P2. But then in the race he qualified P4 ahead of his teammate and then lost I think to P7. Then lost in the safety car because he was behind Antonelli. So all of that unraveled, and I think that was P6 because he got 2 points, and I expected a lot better from George Russell. I think P2 is a very good thing, but I think because it's a sprint, I'm weighing it a lot lower. And I think if he got a 7, Antonelli gets an 8, which is why I've given Antonelli a 7 out of 10. Because I think he was slower all weekend than Russell. But I think he showed consistency, especially in those last few, especially in the last stint. I thought he did well. He closed in on Sainz and he got pushed back, and he closed in on Sainz and he was doing some great defending against Lando Norris. but he didn't really have to because of the DRS train. But he didn't let it pass, but he got oversteer, and that's what matters. I think I would have given him an 8 had he not had that mistake. Moving on, we have Fernando Alonso. He was superb all weekend. I think he qualified P4, and I gave him an 8 out of 10. Qualified P4. He then qualified P8 and finished P7, which is sublime, honestly, for that Aston Martin. I thought they were going to be good around here. I didn't expect them to be that good. I thought they were going to have Alonso in Q3, have Stroll in the Q2. Moving on, speaking of Stroll, he was incredibly slow, almost Alpine slow, and that's a feat. He qualified P19, I think, in both, and then he finished DNF and P20 or P19 in the sprint. So I gave him a 1 out of 10. I think he did worse than Lewis Hamilton compared to his teammate because Lewis, you could see the problem Lewis had. We didn't really have any on boards from Stroll, so I don't know what the problem was, but that just genuinely seemed to just be Stroll. Then we have Pierre Gasly, 5 up there. I didn't give him a 5, I gave him slightly better. In the sprint quali, P19-20 for both Alpines, and then finished P18 and Colapinto P20. And then into the actual qualifying, he got to Q3, finished P9 ahead of Leclerc. Then he got dropped back, I think, behind Leclerc into P10, and then Hulkenberg tries a sweep around the outside. I think it's a racing incident. I am a Gasly fan, so I will say it's a racing incident. But it could be argued either way. Pierre Gasly washed or Hulkenberg cut across. It doesn't matter. At least I think it's a racing incident, so I gave him a 6 out of 10 because had he have cut P10, I think I would have given him an 8. But you never know. Moving on to Franco Colapinto, as I said, qualified P19-20 and then qualified P19 or 20 behind Lance Stroll. And then he just seemed well off the pace. He was last of the genuine drivers because Ocon had botched strategy like McLaren, and Gasly and I think someone else had damaged the whole race. So I gave Colapinto a 3 out of 10 for being well off the pace. I think he got out qualified by Gasly in Q1 by 5 tenths. So we're moving on to Esteban Ocon. Esteban Ocon, he's a funny figure right now. He's big washed up by Behrman. I've just realised I have a problem with Behrman's slide, but it's okay, it's fine. But Ocon seemed to be off the pace again to Behrman, which we seem to expect now. So that's why I've only given him a 4 out of 10 and not any lower. And the bot strategy didn't help either. So I think without that, I might have given her 5 because I wasn't expecting anything from Haas. And I think he finished P16 on the road, no, P18, but he had the bot strategy. So I think he could have placed P14, which I would probably give him a 5 for because that's where I expected him to be. But Ollie Behrman, absolutely heartbreaking race, really. He was faster than Ocon all weekend. He was never really in contention for points in the sprint. He qualified P12, I think, and then finished P12 or P11. So he wasn't anywhere near the points, 3 positions off. And then in the race, he qualified P11-12 again, I think. And then I think he was running P11 or P10 in that DRS train fronted by Alonso. And I think he could have genuinely been for points. And then he comes into the pit lane, lap 7. Then the jack gets stuck after his green light is gone. So it's definitely not Behrman's fault. But I think, considering where I thought the Haas was going to be, I put him P7 for absolutely whitewashing his teammate this weekend in quali, in the race, in everything. He might as well have beaten him in the race. But yeah, I do feel incredibly bad for the steering wheel and Ollie Behrman. But then we have Liam Lawson. I don't know how to feel about Liam this weekend because he qualified Q1. I think he got out in Q2 or 1 in both qualifying sessions. He then, I think, got P14 or somewhere there or thereabouts in sprint. And then he qualified P14, I think, and popped up in qualified P12 and popped up in P9 ahead of Charles Leclerc and Yuki. No, behind Charles Leclerc and ahead of Yuki Tsunoda. So I given him 5 purely because of I might have given him a 6, especially because I didn't expect RB to be that good either. But then Isak Hajar came along and showed us the pace of the RB, and Lawson kind of got destroyed. So I gave Isak a 7 because Isak Hajar out qualified every single one in all the qualifying sessions, and then was running P6 um, until his puncture, where he had to come in and retire the car. But I think he whitewashed Liam Lawson. So I think he really displayed the pace of the RB. Moving on to Carlos Sainz, uh, speechless, just like Oscar Piastri. What a race! He was completely under the radar. Qualified P7, and he got points in the sprint. Well, a point in the sprint after qualifying P8. He then, from safety car, jumped all the way up to P3, and then goes push, and then employs a Singapore strategy of holding Antonelli until he gets DRS on him, but not close enough. So then Antonelli can hold up Lando Norris, and it protected him, and he gets P3 on the road and in the classification. So that's a podium and secures P5 in the constructors for Williams. So I've given him a 10 out of 10 over the whole World Grand Prix weekend. Nobody expected Williams to be good, and then they just completely flipped the setup from last year and it came alive, I guess. So then we move on to Albon. He was kind of exactly where he should have been, really. Sainz completely outperformed the car, and Sainz's Albon was exactly where he was supposed to be, running P10, P11 all weekend, all qualifying sessions. Got to Q3, so I've given a point for that. So I've given him a 6 out of 10 because he got to Q3. He was far off Sainz, but that's because Sainz had an absolute blinder of a strategy, and Albon couldn't really capitalise because he wasn't the front running Williams, which you could put down to qualifying. But Q3 still good. Q3 is still exactly where he needed to be. Just poor he couldn't convert it into a point, which is the reason why he's not any higher than 6. Nico Hulkenberg. He's been really off it recently. I think so. So I think this was back to mediocrity for Nico after highs, lows, and this is somewhere in between. He was running P14 to P16 all weekend, and then just kind of popped up in P11. Great qualifying. Then he was fighting Gasly for P10 points, which I think I would have given Hulkenberg a 7 for, had he have managed to get around Gasly and into the lead, because that would have been some overtake. But alas, I've given Nico Hulkenberg a 5 because I think Kick just went under the radar. Nobody expected them to be great. Nobody expected them to be bad. They were just kind of okay all weekend, both drivers. And Nico outqualified Gabby. Gabby outqualified Nico. Vice versa, whatever. But they both outqualified each other this weekend. Both showed signs of pace-ish. Nico probably a bit more than Gabby, but I still have Gabby with a 5 out of 10 across the weekend. I think Gabby was quick in spurts. He was quicker than Hulkenberg. I think he outqualified him by about a tenth, and Nico outqualified Gabby by about 2. So I think realistically, Gabby, if anyone's to go be downgraded, is Gabby, and if anyone's to be upgraded, it's probably Nico. But I also do think that Lawson could very easily be a 6 because of 2 points for RB, and I also do think that Stroll could easily be 2 out of 10 if we're going off of Lewis Hamilton. And so overall, the ones in bold and underlined are my bangers, and one clanger, which is Lance Stroll. So Lando Norris 7, Oscar Piastri 10, Charles Leclerc 6, Lewis Hamilton 2, Max Verstappen 9, Yuki Tsunoda 7, George Russell 6, Kimi Antonelli 7, Fernando Alonso 8, Lance Stroll, my clanger, number 1, Pierre Gasly 6 after a great qualifying, Franco Colapinto 3, Esteban Ocon 4, Ollie Behrman 7, Liam Lawson 5, and Isak Hajar 7, Carlos Sainz 10, Alex Albon 6, and Nico Hulkenberg and Gabby Bortoleto all on a 5. Now, I think I'll be doing predictions for Abu Dhabi on Thursday, so bye-bye.